and therefore, with your permission, I'm going to start this session. This is perhaps the most difficult session to hold, given the fact that it's end of the day, and there can be an appeal for bad light since all of us come from cricket countries. There can be an appeal for bad light very soon. So it's it's important that we keep your attention. And I have great pleasure in first of all introducing the panelists who would be with us. Their detailed introductions are available in the booklets, and I will not be disrespectful by either giving you a short summary which may deny us the benefit of their full expertise, or for that matter be disrespectful to the booklet you have by reading it out for you. So I will therefore assume that you would read these, but just to give you a one-liner on each one of them. First of all, I am Vijay Thadani. I chair the CII National Committee on Higher Education this year, and I'm also associated with a skills and training organization called NIIT in multiple roles. I have on my left Mr. Venkatesh Valluri, who's the founder and CEO of Valluri Technology Accelerator, which is a very, very bold project to say the least. But he comes from a very rich corporate background. He also chairs, for example, the board of Ingersoll Rand, and Ingersoll Rand, I think just about everybody in the audience will recognize, and has also had long innings with General Electric in the past. On my right, I have Professor Deepak Phatak. He likes to introduce himself as a teacher from IIT Bombay. I tell him as a teacher who's taught every computer science professional in India. So he's perhaps the most famous, favorite, popular, tough to work with, easy to work with, tough to please. I'm sorry, I said it the other way around. Easy to work with but tough to please teacher, Professor Phatak. Again, a very bold thinker, and I call him the hero of Digital India. He is my personal hero of Digital India. Most of us talk about Digital India. Professor Phatak has implemented Digital India even before our broadbands and 3G and 2G networks were here. And he therefore knows how to make the best use of scarce resources. And why I gave this slightly longer introduction is I had a fascinating 2 hours with him about a month ago in his chamber at 8:30 in the night, and went on till 10:30 in the night. And he was explaining how he is planning to make sure that every engineering college teacher gets trained to use digital learning, digital training, and how he plans to do that. So it's a very, very exciting project. I have Professor Ralph Wilcox on the extreme left, and Professor Wilcox is the Provost from University of South Florida. He's been a long timer at the University of South Florida. Very interestingly, in his education, he covered England, he covered Canada, and he covered US. So therefore, those 3 systems, I'm sure, he's not only been associated with in the form of managing their educational systems, but also been a user, so therefore can comment on both sides. He's also been rated as an exceptionally talented academic leader, researcher, and educator. And amongst other things that we are going to discuss today, University of South Florida has actually come forward and instituted a special scholarship in the memory of Professor President Kalam, and that will be actually the first item in the agenda that we would be addressing. And we'll do that just as soon as I finish Professor Sharon Ding, her introduction, And so she is from the Open University, and she was actually mentioning to me that not many people would know about Open University, and I said, well, in India we understand Open University very well. Indira Gandhi National Open University was a very, very large contributor to bringing many people into the university framework, and after that there have been a number of open universities. Quite frankly, it is also a much debated topic, and to that extent I think UK Open University and what they have done can be a very, very interesting exercise for us, even though we picked up the model from there. But I think in its implementation there are a few things which, if we can continuously keep comparing notes, I think there is a lot of scope, and I'm sure Professor Ding will tell us a lot about Open University and how Open University has leveraged digital learning. So right now I will pause here, and Shalini, would you like to talk about the scholarship, and then Professor Wilcox can give that scholarship? Okay, so may I request Professor Wilcox to please announce the scholarship.
Well, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to share with you an exciting announcement. As you have heard, my name is Ralph Wilcox. I am the Provost and Executive Vice President of the University of South Florida, a global research university which is dedicated to student success. Just last week, the National Science Foundation of the United States ranked the University of South Florida number 25 among public research universities, and we are ranked number 10 in the nation for US patents granted. But more importantly, this afternoon, I want to share with you that in 2012, we were deeply honored to welcome the now late President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, to our campus and the Kiran C. Patel College of Global Sustainability. Those of you who had an opportunity to meet President Kalam will appreciate that he left an indelible mark on our campus community. Today, it is my great pleasure to formally announce that beginning with the 2016-17 academic year, the University of South Florida will award annually the President APJ Abdul Kalam Postgraduate Fellowship to a graduate of an Indian institution of higher learning pursuing her or his PhD degree in one of USF's top-ranked science, technology, and engineering programs. USF's President Kalam Postgraduate Fellowship carries with it 4 years of fully paid tuition, along with an annual stipend of at least $18,000 US, and we fully anticipate that in the years to come, the University of South Florida will become a destination for India's most talented young scholars and scientists. Today we enroll on a campus of 48,000 students, about 4,000 international students, 800 of whom come to us from this great nation. Of course, we are immensely grateful to the Kalam family for allowing USF to attach the late President's name to this most prestigious award. So please, if you will, steer your best and brightest students our way. I'll be happy to share brochures, announcements of the award with you after this event, and direct you to an electronic source at the University of South Florida which will provide additional information. So thank you for allowing me this time.
I think on behalf of CI and all my colleagues, I would like to thank Provost Wilcox and the University of South Florida for instituting this scholarship. I think it's a very fitting tribute to a great hero for every Indian. I was mentioning in the break my personal experience in dealing with President Kalam, and I'm sure each one of us in some form or the other have had that personal relationship with him. So how one president could build a bond with a billion people, and I haven't come across anybody who doesn't know him and who does not have something good to say about something that he was associated with. So very, very fitting tribute, and I am sure there will be many more institutions which will rise in the wake of this initiative and will bring the prowess of President Kalam's thinking, as well as the educational system will rise to the occasion to maybe create or help us create never another Kalam, but maybe as close to President Kalam's as possible. Okay. So having said that, I would straight away jump into the topic. What we are here to discuss actually is digital learning, the changing paradigm of education. And I do know that for many years there was a debate of whether digital learning can ever find a place in the formal learning space. I come from an organization which was in non-formal education, and to that extent we've been using digital learning from 1982 onwards. In fact, 1983 we wrote our first CBT, the CBT program, and then that became WBT and then e-learning, and then various terminologies have come. And at that time, for in-service training, it was a very efficient mechanism of reaching out people, and therefore in skills and training, some form of digital learning, if I may use the word, or electronic learning was always considered okay. But whether digital learning will play a role in higher education has always been challenged. Last few times is the time when we have begun to accept the fact that digital learning is not only here to stay, but has a crucial role in filling many, many gaps. I noticed that the panel before us, actually they started by trying to fill the gap of supply and demand and veered away into a discussion on how digital learning will help us do that. So the fact that digital learning has a role to play, I don't think is the debate anymore, certainly not at 4:45 in the evening. But how digital learning has been made effective is definitely one thing which we can learn from. We have 4 individual experiences, and if time permits, maybe a 5th one mine. And in that, what we would first try to explore what works and what doesn't work. And here the real focus is digital learning in formal higher education. That's what we are trying to figure out. Digital learning for formal higher education. And we will go by individual experiences and what works and what doesn't, and from there get on to some more questions. We are at 4:51 as we speak right now, and we have time till 6 p.m. I do want to make sure that we get the discussion amongst us after the initial comments are over and a few questions asked amongst ourselves soon enough, so that we get the balance time available for at least a very good interaction with the audience. So therefore everybody will get a turn, hopefully, to be able to ask the question. So having defined these rules, I would now turn towards Dr. Sharon Ding, and she will start by talking about her experiences either as an academic director at Open University or whichever way she would like to address them.
Thank you, and thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm actually going to address this afternoon's topic by talking about the perspective from that of my own university, which has already been explained, is the Open University in the UK. Now, the OU, Open University, was founded 47 years ago, and we are and have always been the largest UK university. We currently have around 200,000 active students. We're very much a conventional university in that our academics, just like any other academics, teach and also conduct research, and that's been very important to us. They conduct research in both their academic disciplines and in the pedagogy of distance and online learning. That is indeed, as I say, very important to us. We were founded, as you may know, very much to specifically focus on distance education and open education. I'm not going to say any more this afternoon about open education. I'm going to focus on the distance and draw that into currently digital learning. Of course, when we were first founded 47 years ago, we were encouraged to focus on the appropriate technologies of the time, and they were television and audio. So we supplemented our print materials, which were the bulk of our course materials, with television and audio productions. That model worked very, very well. It's very, very successful in the United Kingdom, and I think one of the reasons it's been very successful is that we've always taught at scale. So we would expect probably no less than 500 students on our first year modules. That means that scale means that we can invest large amounts of resource in making our materials very high quality, because we have always believed that distance education and now digital learning cannot be done cheaply if we're going to deliver high quality. So it's a misnomer to expect that we can. And on those few occasions when we've tried to save resource, it hasn't worked and our students have walked away. So scale and high quality are the two pillars, and they're interacting pillars on which the success of the Open University in the UK has been built. Now, of course, we've moved away from the medium of TV and audio, and we're now using online learning almost exclusively. But for us, that is just a different medium in order to be able to deliver high quality teaching at a distance. That's how we view online learning. Of course, there are advantages to distance learning and online learning. Your students can progress at their own rates, and of course they always have the materials with them. They always have the materials to reread and to look at again, which is very different from conventional lectures. One of the other key successes that has meant that the Open University has been so successful and has been able to attract so many students is that we have supplemented our high quality and now online content with either face-to-face or online tutorial sessions with small groups of students. So we have associate lecturers who work for us, very much part-time roles, who look after a small group of students, usually between 15 and 20 students each. So all the course content is delivered at scale, but the actual learning support is delivered in small groups so that we can continue to offer that personalised support to our students. And it's our belief, and we have seen it evidenced over many years, that distance and digital learning works best if students also receive personalised support alongside that digital learning. And of course, that's relatively resource intensive, but it's our belief that that absolutely works appropriately. So now we use mainly online learning. We use very few webcasts or lectures. Most of our teaching material is written material. It's written precisely for the web and precisely for distance learning. We will supplement it with small audio or visual or animated clips, whatever is right for the subject content. but we will always use the appropriate medium that will get over to the students the concepts that we need them to understand. What's important to us is student outcomes and student performance. So we are always focusing on the right medium in order to deliver to those students and giving them the right personalised support which will back up that digital content delivered digitally and at scale. So I guess to summarise then, because we've been asked to talk about the things that work well and the things that work less well, what works well for us and always has is when digital learning at scale is supplemented by small group support, and what works less well is actually the converse of that, when we just push out digital resources to large amounts of students and expect them to get on with it. And that's something that for our students in the UK has not been as successful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was very, 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 very good description, I must say. And I think you brought out the two very important points, that you have to deliver a higher quality and higher quality of digital learning, because digital learning itself is a range.
Yeah.
Like in CBT days, they used to call it from page turners to whatever, adaptive learning. But I can now understand that if you have a higher quality investment is number one, and the second thing which came about was the small group support of personalization. I think these are two very important points which came about. So let's ask Dr. Phatak to talk about his experience, and I think the very exciting experiment. Any one way.
I could have talked from there, but as a teacher I am more comfortable talking while standing. So as she correctly said, digital learning is nothing new. Vijay has been doing it since '82. Use of ICT for more effective education has been attempted in various guises. You would have known of intelligent tutoring systems and whatever. But it's actually the MOOCs which changed the way the world started looking at things, because massive scales were suddenly possible. High quality at large scale has been a fundamental problem that our country faces. Incidentally, Madam Sharon, our Open University, Indira Gandhi Open University, has over 4 million enrolled students, and they would benefit from these activities here. So to tell you our experiences, we started offering MOOCs by becoming a member of the X consortium led by EDX. We offered courses globally. We did not go for a large number of courses, but we experimented with 3 basic core courses. And then we built our own platform at IIT Bombay and started offering these courses for Indian students in January, by also offering a Hindi translation and audio dubbing of the courses, which we found was very useful to first year students particularly. Just to give you a background, long time ago we felt that an important contribution to be made was to give strong orientation program to our teachers at large scale. So we started using technology to reach out to thousands of teachers. For the last 2.5 years we have been running a program called T10KT, where we train 10,000 teachers at a time for a focused 2-week concentrated workshop. These teachers assemble at 300 remote centers. We interact with them, giving live lectures, interactive lectures in the morning sessions, and in the afternoon they do the tutorials and labs at the remote centers under the supervision of a local workshop coordinator. These workshops have been extremely effective, not only through the feedback that we receive from the teachers, but the feedback that we receive from the students whom they teach subsequently. In the MOOCs model, one of the things which we believe did not work earlier was a recognition of the MOOCs credits. In fact, one of the reasons why globally the completion rates are very low, our surveys indicate that one of the reasons is that regular students don't find those credits being useful to their university degree, nor do they find the kind of top-class learning from the best professors meaningful for them to solve their examination questions which are asked in their university. We therefore decided to try out a new experiment, a blended MOOC model, which incidentally is nothing but a flipped classroom on a large scale in a distributed fashion. Incidentally, flipped classrooms have been practiced by a large number of my colleagues in IIT Bombay, and we have researched evidence that the engagement level of students go up significantly. In fact, that's exactly what Sharon said when she mentioned that online plus small groups for discussion is far more effective than just pure online. So in a flipped classroom, that is precisely what we did. The experiment we wanted to do was to collect a set of colleges which will accept their students will study both online and face-to-face from them. So we took the same 3 courses, we elongated them instead of offering them as 4-week or 5-week courses. Each one of those 3 courses would run entire semester duration. We lost a whole lot of online learners. Last January when we had launched them, we had more than 100,000 enrollments because these were all 6-week, 5-week, 8-week courses. When we said each one of these courses will run for 14 weeks or 15 weeks, we had only an enrollment of 35,000 overall. However, out of these 35,000 students, 11,500 are those who are actually studying that subject in their own colleges. We could get collaboration from 50 autonomous engineering colleges in the country, some deemed universities, some NITs, etc., etc. The caveat was one. The teachers should actually ensure that students learn something useful from online and as a supplement something they learn more from face-to-face. B, the final university grade for that subject must have a weightage of the grade of online assessment and a grade of face-to-face. These 11,500 students will necessarily complete the course. It's an oxymoron because they have no choice. Their final grade depends on this. So Vijay, I'll probably have for the first time in the world a 35% completion rate guarantee, because out of 35,000 students, 11,500 are actually students who are completing.
Which is, by the way, single digit otherwise.
Yeah. The point is not that. The point is this experiment can be extended because the feedback that we have received from the students and teachers both is accelerated. All students uniformly say that they have learned more than what they would have learned from only face-to-face. More importantly, large number of teachers who had never thought of using ICT for education are finding out that to do a flipped classroom, you have to actually struggle harder. So we are also simultaneously conducting a training program for all these teachers. So what works well is effectively the recognition of MOOCs credits either by industry or by university, preferably by both. In fact, I would say content creation, content delivery are no more the fiefdoms of universities. Digital material is available in large number. The only thing that remains is the accreditation process of the credit recognition. In fact, I often say jokingly that the arrogance of our university system is based on the fact that our degrees are valued by employers and our degrees are valued by society. The day society discovers, the day employers discover that people actually can learn independent of university and that they can assess their knowledge independently and they can be meaningfully employed, I don't know what we will all do. Our next plan is to try and ensure that all 500,000 teachers in our professional colleges actually get well trained in using these digital learning mechanisms, and we will be launching a very large scale program soon jointly with AICT. Our conclusion is that eventually pure online learning might be adequate. As of today, however, it appears that you need to buttress the online learning by human intervention. And the best human intervention possible is a large number of existing teachers, however ill-equipped they might be today. Perhaps the better thing would be to equip them well. That way, they will not only have a great sense of participation and contribution, but greater innovations will also continue to come from all of them, including contributions to additional important high-quality material for learning and training. I stop here.
Thank you. Every time I hear the story, I have my hair standing up. Because imagine the reach that you are able to create if suddenly 100,000 teachers can be enabled, then each one of them have a reach which can change things very dramatically. But again, I think the underlying theme is blending, and you added another dimension of credit recognition, which means there seems to be some sense in that fetish for degree that we are all seeking. That motivation has to be driven as well, in addition to blending for effective learning is one thing which I am picking up. Professor Wilcox, over to you.
Well, good afternoon once again, and thank you for allowing me to join you this afternoon. I think it's fair to say that the past decade has perhaps been the most challenging, if not disruptive, chapter in higher education across much of the world in generations. Over the past decade, we've been challenged by public officials, by industry, by students, parents, to focus on enhanced access, to address growing capacity needs in higher education, on improved affordability, tied inextricably to the need for increased access, and accountability on the part of future employers to ensure that our students are graduating with a meaningful knowledge base, relevant skill sets that allow them to advance knowledge and grow the economy in their, if you will, backyards. Accountability to students that perhaps is unmatched compared to prior generations. Our university is very much a traditional institution of 48,000 students on 1,500 acres, with hundreds of classroom buildings and science and engineering laboratories, libraries, computer labs, and the like. But what's so very interesting is the digital learning has become an integral part of our strategy to respond to the demands of this turbulent age of higher education. Certainly in the United States and much of Europe, if not around the world. We know that millennials learn in different ways and demand a different level of engagement than prior generations. Digital learning, online education, has allowed us, in much the same way as you've heard from my fellow panelists to this point in time, has allowed students to advance at their own pace, for institutions to provide more personalized learning, and for universities to track student progress. We've leveraged the power of data science and predictive analytics in partnership with digital learning to track student engagement. We know through access to electronic textbooks, for instance, how frequently our students turn the page, how frequently our students access library resources, how frequently our students reach out to academic advisors and peer tutors and professors at the university. And that in turn helps us predict student behavior and learning outcomes. You know, having grown up in the British system of higher education, which is not altogether different to that which one would experience in this country, there was always that sense of winners and losers in higher education. Wouldn't it be great if all of our students were winners and could win and learn and master content? That's what we're striving to accomplish through digital education and digital learning. Yes, a traditional institution in so many ways, but a traditional university where today 25% of our education delivery is provided through digital content. And if we were to add to that the blended, hybrid delivery of education, which incidentally we find to be the most successful, then ours is an institution that looks very, very different to that traditional model that I referred to earlier. So very quickly, and in summary, if I may, what has worked not so well for us, and I heard this earlier, is the notion of pushing online content out to massive audiences. Yes, we've designed and delivered and continue to do so a limited number of MOOCs, but our investment strategy clearly focuses on more focused, engaged learning experience that use digitally mediated formats. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the word which, the phrase which you said in the end, digitally mediated learning content, I think is once again pointing to blending, but what you are, I think, alluding to is digital as a supplement in contrast to digital as a main. Would that be right?
To some extent, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But this is one of the discussion points which we will have in a minute. Let's hear Mr. Valluri.
Thank you, Vijay. So unlike all the panelists, I think I'm the oddball out here, who is more from the industry, and it's wonderful to hear. And I did kind of pick up one statement which I think Professor Phatak made, which was in the future where the degrees would be valued by the employer or the society. And I just want to build on that through a few examples and how I've been seeing over the last few years from an industry perspective and really converge on this topic of digital learning. I would say over the last 1 year, it begins to kind of question what is going to be the competitiveness of a nation and what's really going to be the competitiveness of India. And as I kind of look at opportunities that the government is opening up or whatever challenges the society faces, and we want to solve those issues, it's truly becoming a challenge as to where is the knowledge repository for us to solve those problems. I've been involved, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples and actually dive into this whole topic. I've been involved over the last few months with the Government of India on this whole program of smart cities in a fairly large way of saying, what we need to do directionally. Without naming a few cities and without naming people, I had the opportunity to meet some of the mayors of cities of saying what exactly was the problem in their specific city. And lo and behold, they came up by saying that they had 4 or 5 problems which really impacted the society. And these problems are in the area of water, energy, waste, transportation, pollution, etc., which are very well known and common to all of us, which we face every day. In one of the southern cities, as I met the collector and the mayor of that city, he posed a challenging question to me and he said, listen, I have this issue with water. What can I do with it? I have no data. I know that people fall sick in my city. I don't have a feedback from the society, but I know people are actually falling sick because I realize that the water is actually getting mixed with polluted water and clean water. And is there a way that we can actually solve this issue? Because we really don't know where the groundwater is actually getting mixed up. And as I and some of the other people launched into this issue, we realized that yes, there has to be data that needs to be collected. And how do you actually collect the data for a problem which is so big? And this city was about 3 million people. How do we actually collect data? How do we solve this problem? And how do we actually come up with a solution? And as we realized that if we have to build a technology strategy for this issue, what are the skill sets we really need in terms of people, engineering, in terms of capabilities of individuals who can actually look at this as a blended solution or as a converged solution? We tried to actually use ICT at that point by saying, can we actually connect this information and actually gather this information and actually bring it to the fore and figure out what the solution needs to be? We suddenly realized that none of the engineering schools, and I know that a lot of us are from the premier schools, none of the schools could really kind of get us to a solution which could say, listen, you could do this ABC and the final solution will actually be created. Surprisingly, when we actually let this problem out on the internet, we had solutions that were coming from the nook and corner of this country by saying, you know what, in my village we do it like this. In a town we do it like this, which were really cheap, effective solutions of how to solve that issue. And I think somewhere in this whole process of the way we have defined our education system over the last many years, hundreds of years, or I'd say at least over the last 50, 60 years, we've lost a whole amount of knowledge repository of what the civilization actually delivered to us over the last 5,000 years. And some of that knowledge repository has got completely lost. And I think when we talk about this agenda of digital learning, I think to me that's the core competency or the core delivery which we need to figure out in a manner, in a way that we can actually connect all this up, of actually start looking at this knowledge repository of bringing together, blending it, and actually creating solutions to the society. Now for that, you don't need to go to an IIT, you don't need to be sitting at an NIIT, you don't need to be sitting at an IIM, but you need to be actually learning wherever, from whenever, and however. And the experience what you can get is, I think, really then starts transcending the domains of talking about how this education system now needs to be redefined for the future. And I think to me, that's really, really key in the future of how we're going to start looking at what this digital learning is going to be. I'll tell you the other problem. India, there was a problem of people coming and telling me that, you know what, Mr. Valluri, in India the habit is that we cannot and we will not segregate waste. So could you please tell us what technology is required to actually treat waste without segregating? So at one end we had a whole large government program of saying let's segregate waste at the source so that we can actually look at organic waste to be treated in a manner, get methane gas, convert energy out of it. At the other end, look at non-organic waste treated differently. Now we looked at, can we actually look at technologies on how to treat non-separated waste? And again, you'll be surprised that we had a small company, somewhere tucked away in a small state, who said, you know what, we do this job. We do this day in and day out. We know how to use biodigesters. You don't need to actually segregate waste. We'll actually fix it for you. And how did that happen? It really happened that somebody actually informed us on the internet by saying, this is how you need to do it. Now the question is, how do you scale it up? That's a different idea. But I'm saying, from a technology and an information standpoint, what is happening is these backbones of ICT can actually start creating values which are truly unthinkable. So when we talk about the scale of what we need to teach, the scale of what we need to disseminate, the scale of what we need to actually drive in the society, whether it's teachers, whether it's 500,000 teachers or students, I think we really need to redefine what our teaching methodology in the future needs to be. It's really going to be a topsy-turvy, upside-down way of teaching. It cannot be any longer, let's go through a competitive exam and be the 1 in 1,000 being selected for that mathematical skill which you have to get into an IIT or an IIM and then say, yes, this is the brightest and the most smartest of the society. It will not work in the future that way. And I think, to me, that if I look at it from an industry standpoint, whether it's pure sciences, whether it's technology, whether it's, the other arts and liberal arts kind of skills what you need, I think there's a different paradigm we really need to begin to look at. So, Vijay, just to kind of sum it up, I think if you really talk about this digital learning and the paradigm of, education, I think we all, as, thought leaders, as, people who are running education institutes, somebody mentioned about it, if there's no economic value in the earlier session, we cannot be talking about funding innovation. I think beyond that, to me, if there is a social cost, if you did not do it, that can be more expensive than actually just looking at economic value. And we can see what's happening in Chennai. We can see what's happening in a number of places in terms of climate change. We cannot afford not to change this education system for the future by actually leveraging what technologies what we have, but delivering a number of, interventions to people across the country. And I think that's what we need to do, in my opinion, if we really want to talk about this whole digital learning space. Thank you.
So that was an interesting perspective, and I think you really spoke from your side. You said, I don't care whether you have a degree or not, but help me solve my problem. And if you can help me solve my problem, then you're good. Otherwise, I don't think. Earlier, there was an implied belief that if you have a degree and you are from a good college, chances are that when the problem arises, you will be there to solve it. That was the earlier belief. And I think what you are saying is, it's also time for us to challenge the educational system through digital learning. So let's keep the degree element for a minute on the side. I'm just suggesting that. Suppose we were to say that beauty as defined in the eyes of the beholder and quality as defined in the eyes of the employer, correct? Perhaps would be valid analogy. So if quality has to be defined in the eyes of the employer, can digital learning substitute whatever other methods we are familiar with, traditional, hands-on, Gurukul, whatever method we are familiar with, can it outpace or can it outdo any other method and emerge as the best possible solution? Do you think there is a future of that kind? You mentioned scale and high quality. So do you think it is possible to deliver the highest quality of education, and quality as defined not by us as the academics, but as defined by the employers, who are the ultimate users of our end product, right? So maybe over to you, Dr. Singh.
Yeah, and yes, I absolutely do believe that. And employers, after all, will be reflecting society and society's needs in a very direct and a very urgent way, but nonetheless still reflecting society's needs. And I think we in the OU UK have absolutely demonstrated that you can deliver high quality. And for many topics and many subject areas, I would argue that digital learning is actually superior to conventional face-to-face. I would add, though, it's not directly about quality, but I am assuming employers would also want their employees to complete their education and to have learnt something from it. That has to be to do with quality. I'll go back to my earlier topic about retaining students and saying in order to do that, I think we need to give them some personalised support. Doesn't necessarily have to be face-to-face, that could be online forums too, but someone that will respond to them if they don't understand.
Okay, Dr. Phatak.
I'd like to go back and define what do we mean by high quality learning. So first of all, learning does not happen just because there is a best teacher, whether face-to-face or online. Learning does not happen because there is a best method of delivery that you have. Learning happens when an individual learner applies his or her mind and spends quality time in thinking, absorbing, applying, practicing issues that is what learning is. I believe that whatever mechanism you talk of, including our classes, fundamentally the role of a teacher in the environment is to create a conducive process and motivate the student to spend that quality time. In fact, our examinations is in a way forcing the student to spend quality time in preparing for the exam.
Correct.
Now, if that quality time can be spent by the student, by the learner, then whatever method works is perfectly fine. And I would agree with her. In my engineering curriculum itself, I can think of several subjects in which actually plain digital learning, supported by a strong and active discussion forum, which sort of replaces the human interaction that is normally possible, could be a very good way. I would not think that either or kind of thing. I would like to think that in every professional silo that we have created, whether it's civil engineering, electrical engineering, or commerce, or accounting, or something, identify those topics which appear to be very conducive for better learning digitally, build the appropriate digital mechanisms, because, for example, when we run a MOOCs, a successful MOOCs depends as much on the number of teaching assistants that we have who respond to the questions online very quickly and correctly. And as long as you are able to create a thriving community of people discussing, there is learning there. So identify those, go after them. In fact, even the regulatory bodies in India are not saying go completely digital. The recommendation, at least in the professional environment for the credit recognition, is let at least one course be done by students every semester by using MOOCs or blended MOOCs, whose grades should be recognized by the university. I think that is a better path forward.
Okay. All right. Professor Wilcox, you want to?
Let me offer some general observations and perhaps provide one very specific example of how we have responded to the needs of business and industry through digital education. Certainly at the university, we do deliver. We provide the opportunity for completion of traditional online degrees at the postgraduate and undergraduate level. Students can take building block elements online and blend it with the more conventional face-to-face delivery. But where we are finding the greatest connection with business and industry today is the agility with which we're able to respond to the needs in short order. Endurance is perhaps the number one concern of CEOs and other executives in the finance sector, in utility and infrastructure organizations, in the healthcare industry, and in defense. What so many of our business and industry partners are finding is that their current workforce is insufficiently trained to address those challenges. Our ability to customize workplace-based education to skill up existing workforce to respond to emerging challenges, again, by way of example, through cybersecurity, I think is a good example of how we can offer convenience to continuing employees of companies while helping them demonstrate mastery of learning outcomes, knowledge, and skill sets that are so in such high demand today.
Okay. So, Mr. Valluri, my question to you is obviously not coming from the supply side, but now from the demand side. Suppose you had on your doorstep one resume which said BTech from IIT, IIT Madras, IIM Ahmedabad, MBA, and another one said, give me a problem, whether it is water or waste, and I will find a solution for you. Which one will you choose?
Okay, so it's not a question, but I think it's a statement. I'm sure Vijay is kind of trying to rev up this discussion, but all the same, that's okay. But I'll take a step back here before I answer that question. And this is not a times now debate, but I will take a step back here. When I was at Ingersoll Rand as chairman, we said we are going to launch an initiative where we're going to do something very different. We're going to request a few regional universities and institutes to send their teachers to our R&D facility, okay? And they will spend 6 months with us actually working with our technology teams. So this was actually a reverse role of, rather than sending students across to for training, we said we want the teachers to actually come into our R&D facility. And the reason for that was this, and the quid pro quo was, if you actually send your teacher to our R&D lab, and he or she actually spends 6 months with us, we will then in return come and hire your students. And if you don't send them, we will not have an hiring policy. And there was a reason behind that when I said that we want to do this. And the reason for that was twofold. That when the universities sometimes, and this is as much as the industry to blame, the universities sometimes are not able to keep up with the changes in technology that happen because the competitive forces force the industry to actually innovate much more quicker for them to survive in the marketplace. And in turn what happens is the teacher or the mentor at the university or the college is unable to actually keep up with those. So what we said is, let's reverse the roles. Let's actually get the teacher into the R&D lab and actually train him for 6 months, and he realizes what the market dynamics are, market forces are, what the technologies are, etc. And then when he goes back to the institute or the university, he carries with him that knowledge which he can then impart to the students, and then for us it becomes a ready workforce for which otherwise we would be spending a whole lot of money training them up. Now when you do that, Vijay, what happens, it's not a question of the IIT or the NIT or the regional college. Now you're actually changing the paradigm of the ability of the mentor to actually make the student get interested in something. And I think I take that line from Professor Phatak when he said, how effectively will a digital learning initiative work if we don't have the right kind of mentors actually driving that initiative? And I think if you bring that passion in and then you say, listen, this is the problem we need to solve, then you're actually figuring out a different kind of workforce that starts coming into the college. So to me, I think this whole piece of the teacher training, the engagement of industry and the university must be in a manner that it is an integrated solution based. And again, the other piece of differentiation what we did is, we said one topic will go with one university, one topic will go with a different university, and at the end, when you actually combine these two topics, you were actually creating a solution in the market, which then forced the industry and the two universities also to work together, because then you're beginning to develop what I would call as a core competency in each of the universities through the industry engagement. And I think that begins to work and start showing much better results. So your question of whether it was
no,
I just wanted to kind of take this.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't disrespect. But I think you brought out a very interesting dimension. It's not again digital learning for the sake of digital learning, but because digital learning promotes personalized learning, that personalization can be in the form of integration with industry.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great opportunity. So we are now moving from saying...
I have noted that point, and that will be actually a component of my subsequent training programs for teachers. Thank you.
Yeah,
And let me also...
That's a very, very, very interesting insight.
Let me also suggest that universities can flip that as well.
Yes.
So we have executive in residence programs. We bring managers in residence
Oh, we did the same thing.
into the universities.
Exactly.
And they really shake up our professors who were all-knowing until that time. And it's when they better understand the relevance of curriculum and the relevance of the skill development.
We had a couple of people who went and taught IoT in the university from the industry.
Yes.
So it was a very different way of doing it.
Yeah, so I think this industry integration, in addition to making sure that digital learning is supplemented with some human intervention, and that human intervention can be also in the form of industry integration, I think can create a very, very powerful thought. Because today this whole employability issue,
Exactly.
I don't know what I'm cooking this dish for, and when the dish gets ready, you say, sorry, no, I don't like it. You know, that's where we are right now, okay? Because the dish has a name called BTech. Now, BTech doesn't mean that BTech has a solution to all the problems. So, in any case, I think we are at a very, very interesting point. I just had one question before I throw it open to the audience. What do you think will be the major constraint, or who will be the biggest hurdle, or what will be the biggest hurdle we will have to cross if we have to achieve this? Anyone? Maybe we'll follow the same order.
I guess the acceptance of quality. So the acceptance, because I've talked about employers being a microcosm of society, so general acceptance out there that digital learning is the way to go, because unless I think that gets some currency in general society, in the medium terms, learners will start to walk away from it, because I think in the medium term they'll want something to show for their learning which is generally recognised. So we have to make sure that somehow it is digital learning is recognised as high quality generally. Otherwise, people become disinterested and walk away.
But we need some bold employers like Mr. Valluri
Oh yeah, absolutely.
to come forward. Yeah.
I would entirely agree with her, but I would add one more point. The acceptance by the society and employees as a partner, the other impediment could be the possible attempts by the established system for self-preservation.
Yes.
If I perceive this as a threat to my institution, my job, my activity, I will increase my shouting, saying, of course, this cannot match my quality, and create an unfortunate, unnecessary competitive environment where none exists. That instead of using this technology and using the digital learning as a complement to whatever I am doing, and instead of contributing to that complement, if I take a view that no, I must oppose it, then it could be an impediment. But it will only delay the inevitable, cannot stop.
That's an interesting point.
Well, I would certainly agree with both of those answers. As a third challenge, I think, is this pervasive viewpoint that somehow digital learning can be delivered inexpensively, and therefore is a cheap panacea, if you will, to all of the challenges, many of the challenges that we've discussed up here. In our experience, quality costs, and we're not about to compromise on quality because then we simply fall prey to the arguments of the traditional academy and industry, business and industry, that says, well, I told you so. You couldn't deliver quality. And we continue to hear that from, particularly in a public university setting, from our elected officials, our politicians, that you can solve our problems and you can solve our problems cheaply. No, we can't.
Yeah, there's an old saying that if you throw peanuts at a problem, you'll get monkeys. Yeah. So,
I just want to add one comment over here, Vijay, is, and I don't know whether it's the right word or not, I tend to use this, I call this as the combinatorial solutions, and it's very important for us to understand. If we look at India, and we're saying, 60% or 70% of our population is going to be young or below, whatever, 35 years, 600-700 million people, the biggest challenge is we need to create jobs. How do we actually create jobs for this youth, right? The one piece is by saying, yes, we're going to have learning. What kind of learning are we going to impart to this 600-700 million people who will actually get employed in something? How do we actually define that, and how do we create that? I feel that the industry and the academia really need to sit down and say that there are large topics in this country which essentially require some kind of combination skill sets which eventually then create jobs. Now, I'm not talking about defense and space. Yeah, those are people where they will actually need, maybe a much more higher profile capability individuals to do some of those high-tech pieces. But then there's a large piece of industry which can actually create markets, which can actually create jobs. And I think we need to sit down and say, okay, here are the 6-7 areas which can actually create those jobs. Now, out of that, then we need to talk about how will digital learning really drive those skill sets through this engagement process of using the digital platform, of actually creating those skill sets, which may be a combinatorial skill sets. You cannot be just saying, I'll actually get into only one skill set and I'll actually work in that market, but it's a solution creation, as I talked about, that you take 3-4 universities and say, okay, these 3-4 universities are going to solve a problem of road building using waste. So you build out a waste expert, you build out a physics expert, you build out a chemistry expert, but you get together and look at the solution. And I think that's the way this engine has got to work, of creating jobs. Otherwise, what could happen is we will have a lot of people digitally certified using some courses and programs with truly no employment potential and just kind of, being there. So I think that's where I would come from.
Okay. So very interestingly, Dr. Ding felt that jobs are there, but they may not accept what we produce. Dr. Phatak said most probably it is the traditional teacher who will be the single largest hurdle. That's what I meant by self-preservation. And what you felt was that we may not be ready to make the investments that are required to deliver true digitally. And I think you said at the end of the day, whatever you prepared for, those jobs may not exist because you didn't work backwards from jobs. So what you're saying is work backwards from jobs. I'm turning it around. Work backwards from jobs, invest wisely, make sure that you have the teacher on the right side, right, and make sure that you have the employer with what jobs, I think. So that is emerging as the successful formula for our pursuing digital learning. So we still have good 15 minutes, of which we will give you 11 minutes for questions. So if you don't mind, since we have only 11 minutes, if it's a question, very good.
It's a question. I just want to
know.
Then
just make sure it's a question.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I just want to know, how would you incorporate the Benjamin Bloom's approach in your entire teaching philosophy when it comes to digital learning? How would you ensure that it is the learning outcomes at every level, the first level, the second level, the third level, they are very different, and the student gets the same experience as face-to-face teaching?
Bloom's taxonomy is well known, but let me tell you here, the effort is not to ensure that on a theoretical measurement scale we do a job better than what we are doing today. Okay? Most certainly for either creation of learning objects or creation of these contents, all the theory that you said is being utilized by everybody. Okay, but that is not the end of it. The end of it is finally the ability of my trained person to work meaningfully to solve those problems. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that at this juncture. But rest assured that not just that, but all other research that has meaningfully filtered out important concepts are being used by everyone, all teachers who create these things, no doubt about it. And we continue to do our research. We have a very strong ET department in IIT Bombay and at several other places. We work together.
Just had just a couple of points and questions as well. One is for the advanced colleges who are already using digital technology like the MOOC and the blackboards and things like that, clicker and things like that. What would you suggest? How, because it's a college, it's not a university, so we come under the regulations of today's technology. And why we are asking is there is a very, very high, on the library example, we need to have so many number of books, even if we have digital copies. And that is a big issue, and it's it's not reasonable for us to have that kind of an investment.
Should I take this?
Yeah.
I have been fighting with the Indian regulators on such stupid laws and rules. There has been a review committee for AICT which has recommended that within 10 years, the notion of affiliated colleges must vanish from India. Technical institutions must be independent and must be autonomous. As regards to use of these technology, it will happen at different pace and at different places. The effort is to try and bring together all college administrators, all college teachers, and that is precisely what I mentioned what I meant when I said that we plan to train 500,000 teachers. It's not an explicit training on how to teach physics using the technology. It's just an exposure to technology, possibility. And additionally, we are going to build collaborative communities of these teachers. I would also like to say one thing. Just as digital or normal is not the right question to ask, similarly, it is not a right question to ask how much digital and how much better. I would like to elaborate this because there is a common concept which comes from the developed world where the MOOCs originated and where these debates are obviously very strong. The point is, for such developed world, digital learning, MOOCs, etc., are icing on the cake. If it works, how it works better than the present system. For India, is the cake itself. When we have only 20 million students in higher education today, and when we increase our gross enrollment ratio to 30%, we'll have 30 million students. You take engineering education, which I understand, there are about 5 million students, that number has plateaued. 1.25 million students join every year. There is a huge disparity in the quality of education. Our simple contention is, why do I deny the opportunity to, let's say, learning database system from the great Professor Sudarshan, who is known as the database guru in the country, directly and also simultaneously supported by his local teachers, rather than he being given third-rate lectures by people who are not well qualified or not well experienced. But simultaneously I would like to upgrade those ill-qualified teachers to bring them to a better level. So I don't think it is this or that. Take a large number of students or learners who are not enrolled in any university system. Don't they deserve the best quality education? And there is no other mechanism. Forget blended MOOCs or any such thing. There is no mechanism, no teacher. Don't you think the smarter ones amongst them deserve as good quality education as everybody? So I think for India the problem is different. The rules and regulations that you are talking about pertain to organized sector of education, pertain to colleges. And let me tell you, everything is not hunky-dory with those colleges. I have seen variety of funny things happening within those colleges. So it's a perpetual battle. I would agree with you that the regulators are alive to the fact that technology of teaching learning is changing. As I mentioned, it is AICT committee itself which has recommended that at least one course should be taken by every student where the grades are given by the MOOCs and learning is from the MOOC. So there are progressive things that are happening now. As regards the books and all, I will not comment on that. That's a battle between you and AICT. But please don't shoot at AICT chairman with putting your gun on my shoulder. That's not fair.
Let me offer a quick response, if I may, to both questions, because I see them as being quite related, Bloom's taxonomy and regulators and the impact they have on higher education. It seems that the tsunami of disruption and change in higher education hasn't quite reached India to this moment in time. Let me suggest, and this may seem like heresy coming from the leader of academic leader of a major research university in the United States, but if you don't adapt, you will die.
Yes.
And listening to business, listening to industry, listening to young consumers of higher education today must drive you to fight the resistance that was alluded to earlier in the academy and affect change for the long-term success of this nation.
Very well. Okay, we have time for one more question.
The question is with the digital education, the kind of gap between how it is or the process it is used in the academic institution as well as what it is used in the corporate. Now that gap is reducing because same approach, same content can also be delivered to both. Your thoughts on whether are they two very different in the digital education, and if they are not different, then do you see how long the value of degree would be?
Can I take this question?
Sure, or everybody can.
So, first of all, let me tell you, I have learned an extremely important thing from Mr. Valluri, and that it is absolutely essential to factor both the industry expertise and the industry expectations into any kind of training that we do. Otherwise, there is a danger that if the current training is found useless by them, then we will be doing this useless training more effectively and more efficiently, creating more chaos. That is the first point that I would like to make. Second, I would like to endorse what Professor Wilcox said. So I don't know how many of you have seen Nandan Nilekani's video where he gave a talk to the SEBI regulators saying the WhatsApp moment for capital markets has arrived in India. I am telling you today, WhatsApp moment for digital education has arrived in India. The new generation has started adopting it. If you don't provide, they will find their own mechanisms. But the correct strategy, and you are very right, is for people like us in academia to work closely with the industry, identify in which direction we should take this, and try to create a massive revolution here, because Professor Wilcox is absolutely right. If we do not adapt, it's a writing on the wall. WhatsApp moment for digital learning has arrived, and we do not want to die. We want to actually participate in that wave and run it faster.
Well, this will also give us an opportunity to have closing comments on this as we go along.
Yeah, and I think that's a really crucial issue, really, because it seems to me that in India there is a real opportunity here to really grab hold of this moment and move forward with it. In the UK we've been playing with it for some while. The sector, it's for sure, is regulated in the same way that it is here, and we've been trying to engage employers for some while in the UK. We haven't necessarily had a lot of success, but what we have seen is the requirements of our students of our consumers who are demanding this. So in saying that I think India has a fantastic opportunity, I go back to my first point really, which is I think in order to capitalise on that opportunity, you have to hold on to the quality of the pedagogy, and it is just as easy to demonstrate quality pedagogy in digital delivery as it is in traditional delivery. But for sure it has to be demonstrated, and demonstrated very explicitly. Otherwise, I think you will waste what is a fantastic opportunity for you.
Well, I think it's all been said, hasn't it? You know, in so many respects, let me echo. Do not compromise on quality. Do not compromise on relevance. And I describe us as a traditional, perhaps we're much more of an innovative and entrepreneurial institution of higher education than traditional, but one for whom our brand is all important. And we're not about to invest in mediocrity or invest in irrelevant curriculum delivery through digital means or other means. And the last comment, and it's really echoing what was suggested earlier, I think, by myself and others, and that is that the millennial generation do learn differently. They expect a higher level, and will come to expect an even higher level of engagement in learning. Because if Indian institutions don't embrace digital learning, rest assured the rest of the world will open up the doors to Indian students, and perhaps that will be just what you need to spur innovation and change in Indian higher education.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think as Dr. Wilcox mentioned, I think most of it has been said. The only comment I'll make is, as long as we all understand that capitalism is there to stay, we will need to create economic value, assuming that that's the model the world will move forward, because we've seen the rest of it fail, though it's got its own failures in some form and shape. But I think there's a fundamental shift that's happening. I think the growth is now more responsible. I think there's a responsible growth is what societies are beginning to demand and expect, and not the kind of unrestricted growth of, just messing up the climate, messing up this. And I think this whole platform of digital and the ability to kind of share information globally is going to become more and more important, which means that the education system has got to really change very quickly. We cannot be becoming defensive that, this is my island and that's the only way I'm going to do it because you're going to lose. And I think you heard these comments. So there's a piece of economic value creation, there's a piece of bringing up society, and there's a piece of the access to information to everybody equally. And I think the best man will win who actually puts all that together. And I think that will be the game changer. So we got to get prepared for that. And I don't think so the younger generation is going to wait to say, okay, you mess up the world more, and then we'll keep waiting for it. That's not going to happen.
Right. So I think we were just beginning to warm up when the bell rang, which is what normally happens. But any case, I think there are some very interesting takeaways. First, I'm just going to borrow words of various people, as they have said. So the digital tsunami is at our doorstep. Yes, so you can listen to digitally. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So digital tsunami is at our doorstep. Small part of tsunami already left, by the way. And I don't think there is a choice. In Dr. Phatak's words, the WhatsApp moment for digital has arrived. If we don't do it, our students will find a way of getting it. If they can't find a way of getting it here, they'll get it wherever they can. And therefore, that is anyway going to happen. Second, quality and relevance is non-negotiable. I think as long as we keep pushing that aside by saying we are here to do numbers but not looking at quality and relevance, I don't think we have a starting point. I think today one important takeaway was how to integrate industry and various industries put together. And I think that even the combination skills is a phenomenal idea of how a bunch of institutions and bunch of industries can work together and create the combination skills which will find use. And also the issue is, at the end of all this, we need to create economic value, right? So if we don't create economic value, then we will not be making great progress. The only silver lining I have to say is, we had two choices. We have 700 universities and 40,000 colleges in the country. If we had to deliver 30% gross enrollment ratio, ballpark, we need another 700 universities and another 40,000 colleges. If we adopt digital technology, maybe we don't need 700 more universities and we don't need 40,000 more colleges, and maybe this same infrastructure and the same investment which we were going to deploy otherwise in creating more capacity, if we put it intelligently in digital space, we can actually leapfrog the rest of the world, because we are going to build fresh capacity while the rest of the world will have to refurbish their existing capacity. So that can be a silver lining which should make us all feel good as we leave this room tonight to come tomorrow morning for the next session. So I thank you all for your attention. Sorry we were 3 minutes late. That's not Indigo time.